For more than 30 years, the people living along the shores of Lake Tanganyika have spoken in hushed voices about something that should not exist, a creature so large, so old, and so impossibly difficult to kill that locals began to wonder if it was even an animal at all. Whispers connect this single predator to over 300 human deaths. Its back is scarred with bullet wounds from hunters who tried and failed. A bounty placed on its head sat unclaimed for years because no one could get close enough to collect it. And in 2004, an international team of scientists built a steel trap weighing 3 tons specifically to capture it alive. The trap failed. The creature vanished. And to this day, nobody can say for certain whether it is alive or dead. Welcome to Apex Truth. This is the story of Gustave and how one crocodile became something closer to a ghost story than a wild animal. To understand how something like Gustave could exist, you first need to understand the place that created him. Burundi is a small, landlocked nation tucked into the heart of Central Africa, where the watersheds of the Congo and the Nile converge across a landscape of steep highland ridges and deep rift valleys. Along its western edge lies Lake Tanganyika, one of the oldest and longest freshwater lakes on the entire planet. Feeding into it is the Rusizi River, a 116-kilometer waterway that traces the border between Rwanda, Burundi, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo before spreading out into a wide, shallow delta where it finally empties into the lake. This delta is, by every ecological measure, prime Nile crocodile habitat, warm water, abundant fish, and almost no competition at the top of the food chain. Most crocodiles here live exactly as you would expect. Younger, mid-sized adults patrol the shallows with real agility, picking off fish, birds, and the occasional small mammal that wanders too close to the water's edge. But biology has a strange rule buried inside it. The larger a crocodile becomes, the more its entire relationship with its environment is forced to change. And by the late 1980s, something began happening along the shores of Lake Tanganyika and the Rusizi River that nobody could fully explain. Reports of attacks on local villages started increasing. Fishermen disappeared. Women washing clothes at the riverbank vanished without a trace. And slowly, almost all of these incidents began circling back to a single name, Gustave. Thousands of people along these shores depend entirely on the water for daily survival, for fishing, for bathing, for washing. Every single one of those routines placed them directly inside the hunting range of something far larger than an ordinary crocodile. Nile crocodiles are already the second largest crocodilian species on Earth, surpassed only by the saltwater crocodile. Gustave has never been officially captured, measured, or weighed, but based on photographic evidence and decades of eyewitness testimony, researchers estimate his length at over 6 meters, with a body mass exceeding 1 metric ton. To put that in perspective, in most African rivers, the hippopotamus holds undisputed dominance, regularly bullying, biting, and occasionally killing crocodiles that get too close. But Gustave appeared to flip that hierarchy entirely. Adult hippos, witnesses reported, did not treat him with their usual aggressive confidence. They responded to him the way they would respond to a genuine predator, clustering defensively around their calves whenever he was nearby. Something about his sheer size had rewritten the normal rules of the river. But raw biology alone does not explain how Gustave became one of the most feared individual animals in modern history. In 1993, Burundi descended into a brutal civil war between rival ethnic factions, a conflict that would ultimately claim an estimated 300,000 human lives over the following decade. During those years, it was not uncommon for bodies to drift down the river current, washing up along the banks and marshes of the delta. For a 1-ton predator, this represented an unimaginable and tragic abundance of accessible food. Some researchers believe this period may have done something far more dangerous than simply feeding Gustave. It may have actively conditioned him to associate human beings with easy, available prey. Local legend went even further, claiming Gustave was possessed by something malevolent, driven by hatred rather than hunger. That folklore was fueled by one deeply unsettling detail. Unlike typical crocodiles, which kill specifically to eat, witnesses reported that Gustave would frequently strike a human victim, drag them underwater, and then leave the body completely untouched on the riverbed. He was not always killing to survive. Sometimes he appeared to simply be killing. In 1978, a French herpetologist named Patrice Faye arrived in Burundi to study the region's reptile populations. He had spent years working with crocodiles across Africa, but nothing in his experience prepared him for what he was about to encounter. In 1998, a group of local fishermen who dove for rare aquarium fish in Lake Tanganyika approached Faye in genuine distress. One of their colleagues, they told him, had just been taken by an enormous crocodile, and this was not the first time. This particular animal, they explained, would appear, vanish for months or even years, and then resurface in the exact same hunting grounds to kill again. That conversation changed the entire direction of Faye's career. He obtained a formal tracking license and began systematically documenting attack locations up and down the lakeshore and the Rusizi River, interviewing survivors and witnesses, building a timeline that would eventually span more than a decade. Throughout the 1990s, as people continued disappearing along the lake, authorities initially blamed the ongoing civil conflict, rebel violence, or even a human serial killer. It took nearly 2 full years of careful investigation before the pattern became undeniable. The bite radius, the drag marks leading into the water, the consistent eyewitness descriptions all pointed to one single, massive Nile crocodile. And then, in 1998, Faye finally saw him with his own eyes, a colossal, heavily scarred shape gliding silently through the water. Faye initially raised his rifle. But the moment he got a clear, unobstructed look at the animal in front of him, something shifted. He was looking at what may have been one of the last true prehistoric giants left alive on the planet, and killing it suddenly felt less like justice and more like an irreversible loss. Faye lowered the weapon and made a decision that would define the rest of his career. He would study Gustave instead of destroying him. In 2001, he formally gave the crocodile the name by which he is known today. By 2004, word of Gustave has spread far beyond Burundi, eventually reaching the production teams at National Geographic, who partnered with Faye to launch one of the most ambitious live capture operations ever attempted on a single crocodile. The goal was bold and, in theory, beautifully simple: capture Gustave alive, relocate him to a secure, protected enclosure, and end the threat to local communities without destroying an irreplaceable animal. To trap a monster, the team essentially built one of their own, a steel cage nearly 30 feet long, weighing close to 1 ton, reinforced with heavy mesh and fitted with spring-loaded pressure plates designed to seal shut the instant something massive crossed inside. Getting that cage into position was its own nightmare, requiring the team to maneuver a ton of steel through the unstable, sucking mud of the Rusizi River delta. They anchored it to the riverbed, wired it with underwater night vision cameras, baited it with a live goat, and retreated to wait. For several tense nights, the footage showed smaller crocodiles, roughly 10 feet in length, cautiously approaching the bars, inspecting the trap, and swimming away again. Gustave never appeared. And then, on one final morning, the team returned to find the entire scene in chaos. The massive steel cage had been dragged halfway into deep water and now sat partially submerged. The trap's locking mechanism had triggered, and the goat was simply gone, no trace, no remains. Faye's working theory was that a sudden storm had caused the river to flash flood overnight. the surging current dragging the heavy cage off its anchor point and disabling the mechanism before Gustave, or perhaps something else entirely, ever reached it. When the National Geographic crew eventually packed up and left Burundi, they left behind a population still gripped by fear, with no real answer to the question hanging over the entire region: when and where would Gustave strike again? But here is the detail that genuinely changes the entire story, the piece almost no one expected. Crocodiles, as cold-blooded reptiles, have remarkably slow metabolisms and extremely low caloric needs. An animal the size of Gustave can comfortably survive for months on a single substantial meal. Many biologists now believe the majority of his attacks were never about hunger at all, they were territorial. A bull crocodile of that size views his stretch of river as an absolute kingdom, and anyone entering the water, whether to fish, bathe, or wash clothing, registers not as food, but as a direct intrusion that demands an immediate, lethal response. And then comes the reveal that reframes everything. For decades, local legend insisted Gustave had killed somewhere between 200 and 300 people. After 11 consecutive years tracking his movements, documenting attacks, and cross-referencing eyewitness accounts against verified locations, Patrice Faye reached a very different conclusion. The legendary body count, he determined, had been dramatically inflated over the years by fear and folklore. His research suggests the true number is closer to 60 confirmed deaths, still making Gustave one of the most prolific individual predators ever documented, but a fraction of the myth that had grown up around him. Nile crocodiles typically live between 60 and 70 years in the wild. By any reasonable estimate, Gustave would now be in his 80s, an age where even the largest, most dominant crocodilians eventually begin losing ground to time, injury, and declining hunting success. The last credible sighting came in June 2015, when a local resident reported seeing him dragging an adult buffalo carcass into the Rusizi River. In 2019, rumors spread that he had finally been killed, but without a confirmed carcass, a verified skeleton, or a hunter stepping forward to claim the long-standing bounty, science has never been able to officially close the file. Whether Gustave is still moving silently beneath the currents of the Rusizi River today, or whether he slipped quietly into death years ago, may never be confirmed. But somewhere along the way, he stopped being just an animal. He became something closer to a legend, proof that the natural world still holds creatures rare enough, dangerous enough, and mysterious enough to outlive their own myths. This has been Apex Truth. If Gustave's story left you with more questions than answers, that is exactly the point. Some of nature's greatest mysteries were never meant to be fully solved. Leave a like, subscribe for more deep dives into the planet's most extraordinary and least understood predators, and we will see you on the next one.